Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Transportation and Environment Committee and Public Safety Committee work session of Monday, December 8th, 2025. Today we have two topics on the agenda. The first is a briefing, traffic enforcement cameras. The second is an update on Safe Streets Act implementation. Please note I'm going to chair the first topic and Chair Glass will chair the second topic. As we begin, I'd like to thank Ms. Farag and Mr. Kenny for preparing the staff report for the topics today and for once again and always assembling the most informative packets for us. Unless the other joint committee members have any opening comments, I don't see any. You do. I'm going to turn to you in 2 seconds. I'm going to ask the first panel to please introduce themselves and ask if they have any opening comments, and then Mr. Kenny will lead us both through both discussions. Chair Glass.
Thank you very much, Chair Katz. I appreciate us bringing the Transportation and Environment Committee and the Public Safety Committees together to discuss these two incredibly important items. This year alone, there have been 487 crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists, 56 of which were serious, and 15 ended in fatalities. And these are our neighbors and friends just living life in our community. And so today's conversation is grounded in that, making sure that our roads are safer for everybody, and appreciate everybody taking their time to talk about this incredibly important issue.
Anybody else? No. With that, if the panel could please introduce themselves.
Assistant Chief Dave McBain. I'm operating the Special Operations Bureau now. We've changed names of some things.
There you go. Keeping you on your toes, Dave. Please.
I'm Chris Tippery. I'm the Director of Automated Traffic, and I work under Assistant Chief McBain.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wade Holland. I'm the Vision Zero Coordinator with the Office of County Executive.
Do any of you have opening comments?
I was going to just briefly take us down the road of why we're here today, real quick. I think it's important to know. So back in July, we obviously met, and it came on our radar that we had some issues with our automated traffic enforcement. As a result, kind of parallel with learning that, we were also dealing with the OIG and some questions they had with some of the things that were in our program. And so we made the hard decision to go dark, in which for an automated system of our size, that was a substantial move or step that we had to do in order to make sure that we had an automated traffic enforcement operation that was functioning at an acceptable level in Montgomery County. I will say that at that time, I swung for the fence and I went for a startup date for our new system of October 1st. If I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing because I have to say that in a very short amount of time, not only did the management budget and the automated traffic unit from the police department, but the finance division, procurement, and many other partners in government stepped up and moved at warp speed to do what we've done so far to what we're going to present to you today. So I'm very proud of the fact that many government agencies came together to get a system back online, which I think you're going to learn is going to be a lot sooner than later. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'm also proud of the system that we're setting up and believe that it's going to be the system that we have to provide for our citizens, and it's going to operate efficiently, effectively, and we'll be able to address any issues that we've had in the past. So thank you very much for this time.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Kenny, please.
Thank you. I will largely defer. I will largely defer to the presentation prepared today by MCPD and our Vision Zero coordinator. Just wanted to note that this does go hand in hand with our second presentation of the day, as this is part of the Safe Streets Act. So I was thinking about sort of the mosaic of operations that have come out of that law. I wanted to note that because this is referenced in that staff report for the second item.
But otherwise, we'll turn it over to our panel.
Very good. Who's leading us through, please?
All right, good afternoon. Again, for the record, my name is Wade Holland, the Vision Zero Coordinator. So we are going out of order on the slides. The DOT slides are in the beginning, so if this starts actually at slide 23 in the packet. We'll start off with Mr. Tippery to talk about kind of the goals of automated enforcement as not Captain McBain, Assistant Chief McBain. It's been a while. Not only talking about what our current program is, but also what we see as the larger vision for automated enforcement. I know Chris Tippery thinks about these things a lot, looks at what's going on in the world to see what's going on and kind of understanding for you all what it would look like, because obviously with automated traffic enforcement, we have to go to Annapolis and then request any sort of changes in our expansions. We'll talk a little bit about those expansions that we won this year as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, everyone.
Need to, there you go.
Good morning.
It's
Sorry, good afternoon at this point.
I don't know how long you've been here this afternoon.
Well, on the tech side, I've been buried behind my computer all day watching this stuff come
We
live.
understand.
It's pretty interesting. So as you know, for the past several years, we've been trying to get legislation with the high incident network. As you just saw in the previous slide, we actually got that legislation after 3 years of hard work. Kudos to Delegate Solomon. He carried the torch. We changed the title a couple times. It was through his dedication that we were able to get it through, and as you can see on bill signing day, and that goes along with our IGR, Sarah Morningstar. I'm sure we're all familiar, and we look forward to a new legislative session and to what new advancements in automated enforcement we can bring to keep our community safe. As always, we're very excited that we're partnering with Vitronic. Vitronic is the original equipment manufacturer of the units that we were using previously. They also provide the back-end software that supports their equipment. That was not previously offered to us. So, and the ways that we deploy the cameras, we've been able to modify and do it more efficiently. We've learned a lot of things. I've actually went to Germany. I toured the factories where these systems are manufactured, met the people behind the technology, and feel that this is definitely the way to go. Like Assistant Chief McBain said, we were shooting for October. Things that are beyond our control is everything else that's happening around the world. Tariffs are put in place. We had to ship all this equipment from Germany. Vitronic actually opened up a corporate headquarters here in Montgomery County. They have 9 representatives from Germany here today building out our system. They're actually putting the cameras in. I got to see it from the very basics, from the assembly line, that each one of these cameras are actually specifically built by one person. Nothing is outsourced, nothing is manufactured elsewhere. They have 3 factories over there and offer a whole new world of deployment for us. Some of you have seen the trailered system on University Boulevard. That's one of trailers, that's one of 6. So we're no longer using vans because we can put this system out a lot longer, self-contained. It has its own fire suppression system, it has its own alarm system, it has its own surveillance system. We learned a lot over there. We learned a lot about how they've adapted to the community. One of the things we'll be doing is the same enforcement trailer that you've seen, is they actually take that to schools, elementary schools and middle schools, and the kids paint it. And then we just clear coat over top of it. So who can speed past a trailer with little kids' handprints all over the side of it? We've talked about some other, they have a whole media division, so it's definitely opened our eyes to a lot of different things that we can do. And in coordination with Wade, we're talking about how we can be more transparent. I'll give a shout out to my partner in DC. If you have an opportunity to look at their dashboard, that's where we're going to go. It's as transparent as could be. It's basically real-time data being transferred on violations being satisfied, where the cameras are. Just today, I was showing the assistant chief that as these systems are coming online, they're actually populating real-time in a map, and we can actually geolocate where each of the portable cameras are. And we want to make that transparent. We're not trying to hide anything. Unfortunately, we put the Safe Speed sticker on the back of the new ones, and all it did was create more vandalism. So the Beers Mill camera is currently back at the shop getting some cleanup, let's say. We're excited. The good and bad publicity, just like we talked about DC. So there's all kinds of rumors going around about how many cameras we're deploying. The more the better. I like the rumors. The rumors are great because everybody talks about all of our speed cameras. We're adding 200 apparently. Well, that's great because then nobody wants to
Nobody
speed.
told you?
Right, right. I was like,
You're
I'm
always the
adding
last to
200
know.
to the 100 I have. That's great because any publicity is good publicity because all it does is slow people down. You know, when you go into D.C., nobody wants to speed in the district because that guy's got cameras everywhere. Well, is that really bad? We don't have all those cameras, but the more that the public, the more times that we get that word out there that there are a lot of cameras, okay, so the worst case happens is people slow down. There's a lot of subject matter experts on the internet. We enjoy reading all their stories. Some are close, most are not. But the fact is we're not expanding the program to any more than we were initially several years ago when we decided on the expansion in 2022. That's the same amount. The only change is instead of using trailers, instead of using vans, we're using trailers, which is a much better way to deploy them. We've decided on where, like intersections, University Boulevard. We had portable cameras that go in each direction. Well, now we have a cylindrical unit that Vitronic makes that we can actually stand up one unit in the median strip, run east and west without much impact to the environment, less signage, less impact, and everybody can see it. So what we're deploying is as of today, all of our highest enforcement locations have cameras in them. Now we're going to the secondary locations and school zones. What will take us a little bit is it is a complete infrastructure rebuild. We have to replace all the red light cameras, and we have to replace all the fixed pole systems. All the fixed pole systems, of course, most of them are in school zones. To alleviate the pressure, we're going to the school zones with portable cameras during that construction phase. But you'll see a different type of fixed pole. So one of the things we were hindered on in the past is it actually takes a bucket truck to maintain that system. Well, Vitronic has developed a way to actually bring the system down to 4 feet. We can maintain the system and then send it back up. The other advantage is we can better deploy the camera that's inside, say Sherwood Elementary School, because that's where my children went to school. Is I can place a fixed pole system at two ends of it, and I can take the enforcement camera and move it between those two locations easily. So I can better deploy my camera. If I need to there, I can place two. If I can maintain the enforcement aspect, nobody knows if there's a camera there or not. So I can better deploy my system more effectively. On the vehicles, we do still have vehicles available. There's a tripod system that once my people, very rarely, have nothing to do, they'll be using tripod systems that will sit out in front of a vehicle. So they'll still be monitored by one of our employees, and just another way that we can reach out to the community.
I just want to add to kind of piggyback what Mr. Tipper was talking about, but when we're talking about the deployment of the camera systems, we need not to forget about the fact that all of our systems are deployed based on data. So we're not just indiscriminately throwing them out in the county wherever we want them. Quite frankly, we don't even receive pressure from you all or the county executive of maybe wanting a camera in a specific location. We look at the data, we do speed studies along with the Department of Transportation State Highway, and we put those cameras where they're needed. And then if a location is offered up as a possibility and the data doesn't support it, we'll respond to the person asking for the camera system and explain to them why we won't do that. But I think it's important to note that we're just not throwing these cameras in neighborhoods and throwing them all over the place to quote unquote catch people. And then one other thing I will say that in the interim, while we have remained dark with our camera systems, specifically the school fixed points or fixed camera systems at the school locations, the Montgomery County Traffic Division, the motors that work in the county, every single day since July, they've been working the schools in the morning and in the afternoon for the arrival and departure. And we're going to continue that posture until all the camera systems are back up and running again.
Okay.
I will have one thing that's kind of unique to Montgomery County is we take the complaints from the citizens themselves. So as most of you know, it's kind of, because we're so used to it, is that you can send an email or contact the automated traffic unit, and we'll go study the location. Well, we actually created an internal dashboard And we actually had one of a summer intern enter all the information from historical data that we had, so we can track who actually made the request, was the request fulfilled, did it go to permit, what status it is currently in. So that way we can keep following up. So we can tell people you don't have to contact us again. We're working on it, or we'll give you a status update. And it's on a dashboard that, again, it's internal. Very few staff have access to it, so we can maintain the security of the system, but we track every request that comes in from a county resident. Because oftentimes we find is the county resident will call up this year, and then 2 years from now, something will change in the environment. Maybe a neighborhood, construction, a shopping center, they'll call us back and say, hey, we've noticed some speeds increasing. We already have the historical data, so now we go back and take another look. And maybe there is a reason to put automated enforcement there.
And one final thing, I promise. I think it's important also to note, this was going to happen regardless if where we are now today, but graduated fines are into effect, and so those are going to play a role in higher fines for higher speeds, which I think is appropriate, and I think it's going to change behavior of drivers. And then also with our new vendor, we're also looking at many different technologies, like move over technology that we can put camera systems in light bars of police cars. But also, we truly do want to go down the road of distracted driving cameras and also pedestrian safety cameras. And the technology is there, and I think we can benefit greatly from those types of automated systems in the county.
There you go, Wade.
Yeah, we can go to the back to the slides here. Just kind of give you an idea of what systems are allowed currently in Montgomery County for automated enforcement. So we've been talking about red light, speed cameras, and then within the county code as well as the state law, there's certain areas where speed cameras can go. We do get a lot of questions. I really want that speed camera on Georgia Avenue in Wheaton. Well, it's a central business district, so we weren't allowed to place under state law. So common question we get is why was it denied? Even if there may be a speed issue, there was state law that prohibited us from placing them in certain places. As was mentioned a little earlier, after three or four tries in Annapolis and many hours sitting in the hallways waiting to testify, we did get an expansion of these laws to allow the placement of speed cameras in our high-entry networks that are defined in the Vision Zero Action Plan. That's here on the slide number 27. These are 3% of our county and state roadways that account for 41% of our serious and fatal crashes. These are most likely to have serious and fatal crashes. So when we did the math, we actually found about 60% of these roadways, these are about 100 miles total, so 60 miles, were ineligible for speed cameras. So we said, well, if there's a potential for a speed problem on these roads, and we know these are where our serious injuries and fatalities happen, we should be allowed to use speed cameras. So this will be a new part of as we bring on the new system. We also need to bring authorizing legislation to you all as part of activating this. We were hoping we wouldn't have to change local law, but because of the way that code is written, it's enumerated as where they can be placed. So that will be coming over soon in the new year to make sure we can use that new authorization. In terms of other areas that are growing in the county that are currently under consideration is stop sign violations. That was first allowed in Maryland in Prince George's County in school zones. It was added last year during the legislative session to the city of Tacoma Park. There is a local bill this year that'll be under consideration for 2026 to expand that to the cities of Gaithersburg and Tacoma Park into their school zones. And we also have countywide, all of our county school buses have cameras that track for people illegally passing school buses, which is about 50,000 violations each year. Allowed in development, we just talked about speed and high crash corridors, vehicle noise, and bus lane monitoring. I'll turn it over to Chris in a second to talk about those in developments. The allowed but not used locally of one system, which is automated railroad grade crossing enforcement. And then there's other things, as Chief McBain mentioned, areas where not allowed, but they are viable technologies, which includes distracted driving enforcement, which we tried and the county council and the county executive supported last year. It was interesting to take to Annapolis. There wasn't a lot of questions about it, but it was good to hear the feedback and what people were concerned about. And there is a local bill this year to allow Montgomery County to use automated enforcement in school zones as it's currently introduced to use in school zones for drivers who violate a pedestrian's right of way in a crosswalk. So, Chris, you want to talk about the other two? Vehicle noise and bus lanes?
The noise monitoring cameras, it's difficult because it's not part of the Vision Zero plan. It's not under Wade's scope, nor is it really, it's not offered by any of our speed contractors. So essentially, we're going out on our own and starting from scratch. Different jurisdictions throughout the country apply it differently. There's a lot of rumors about California. California is under legislative law that California Highway Patrol has to analyze the top systems and provide a report back by 2027. New York, we work with New York DOT. We actually help build their RFP for their automated enforcement system and their school bus monitoring system. So we work well. We're in constant contact with New York DOT. That's not issued by the police department or their automated traffic. It's a separate violation through their environmental protection. So we're kind of embarking on some new ground and finding a vendor that can provide it. Again, luckily we're partnered with Prince George's County and trying to come up with a solution. Prince George's County's speed and red light vendor decided to take the task on, but it has to be built out. So again, what nobody wants to hear is things were stuck on boats. There's tariffs and stuff that had to be taken into consideration. So I'm in constant contact. I meet with Prince George's County, Maryland State Police every other week. We talk about automated enforcement. We talk about that. We're looking forward to testing that unit in National Harbor. The question is whether the noise will reflect off the glass, because that's going to be huge whether this is a win or not. The other difficult piece that nobody knows about, including myself, is what the images actually look like. I have to have two still images and an image showing the vehicle in motion. Where most of this technology comes from jurisdictions that don't have any restrictions on images of the passenger compartment or pedestrian traffic in the roadways. They're not concerned about those being part of an enforceable violation, but here we are. So that has to be taken into consideration. Can the manufacturer and the software developer actually either ghost or modify the images of people in crosswalks so they can't be used for facial recognition later on? And honestly, I agree that because you're in a crosswalk, your face shouldn't be archived in somebody's violation for the next 5 years. So there's a lot of hurdles. I know it seems like it's moving kind of slowly, but trust me, we're on it because both of us are feeling a little pressure. So as soon as we can stand it up, we look forward to it and making sure it works and that everybody understands what these images are going to look like, because that's going to be a huge part of it.
Sure, please.
Mr. Chief, if I could just add one quick question on that. Is there anything we need to do, because the enabling legislation out of the state was for a very specific time period, and we've been talking to Delegate Plakovich-Carr, and she understands, and many of our delegates understand that they weren't giving us a very long runway here on new technology. So if there's anything we need to do to communicate to get an extension of that pilot, just let us know. But we know you're working on it, and we appreciate the updates.
As far as the crosswalk safety for automated enforcement, it's the same technology that we moved forward with last year in legislation for distracted driving. That technology and the company did adjust the image. They degraded it enough that it can't be used for facial recognition. We've had it certified that it can't be used for facial recognition. With distracted driving, I think we had 6 locations, and we're getting 2,300 violations an hour.
Good.
Right. We didn't get it in legislation. It's unfortunate, but we're applying the same technology to pedestrian crosswalk safety. It did go through the Senate and the House in Virginia, and it passed, and Governor Youngkin vetoed it because he just wanted more information on the cameras. So we're hoping to use this essentially the same bill and try to get it passed here in Maryland.
Sure, please.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Mr. Holland, were you still going through your presentation? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I think we've largely covered, we're a little bit out of order, but we largely covered the same questions. I know in the packet there was questions about the new privacy law. Did you all want to cover that, or are you comfortable with what's in the packet?
Well, if I could, before we get to that, appreciate the presentation and all the information about what's coming down the pipe, right? And
Literally.
not only needing legislation at the state level, but then clearly refining that which we need locally to operate. But I do want to go back to the purchase and the agreement with the vendor for all the cameras. When the Safe Streets Act passed, there was one of the four pillars of that was the automated traffic safety plan, which was submitted, right? And so we have that. And part of that conversation was waiting for the state law change to determine what the right mix of cameras were. And what I'm hearing from you this afternoon is that there is not going to be a deployment of new cameras. Is that what I'm hearing? That there are the mobile cameras, the trailers, but no fixed cameras?
No. There's going to be fixed.
Okay.
There's 51 fixed systems that get replaced. It's the fixed pole that you see in the school zones, and they're being replaced with lifting poles. So during the construction phase, we're just going to support those locations with portable cameras.
So thank you for that. So let me ask the question a different way. So that's replacing those existing cameras. What about additional new cameras in new locations?
We are, with the expansion, we were adding the additional cameras. We just required a pause for a little bit, but we've already studied 51 locations on the high incident network where we're going to need to put systems. It's just smart development. We can go out, we've already done the traffic studies, we've already picked the locations. Once the enabling regulation comes to you guys for approval, we're ready to start putting systems on those roadways. And then we'll determine what type of enforcement we'll need. Do I need to monitor it intermittently with a portable system, or am I going to need something more permanent, like a fixed pole? That's yet to be determined, but we do plan on expansion. It's just smart expansion. We don't want to get.
And I'll add to that, we say the word expansion, there's kind of two different versions. There's expansion of locations, and then there's expansion of the fleet. So on the fleet side, it's basically just replacing what we had. I believe in the packet we said what the numbers were for fixed pole, mobile, and trailers. And it's largely trying to rebuild that first. I think the contract may reflect other expansions in the future for the fleet itself. And that's why we use the portable cameras, right? Because we can use more locations across the county because we have more locations approved than we have cameras that can be operated each day. So we are looking at expansion in terms of locations. Now with this high injury network authority, we were working with the State Highway Administration for looking at locations where between our HIN, a high injury network, and their vulnerable road user corridors, can we start using those? And so as part of Chris's program, he would be putting his existing fleet as it gets replaced. Those cameras now could be swapped in and out of those new locations.
And the only thing I would add is, and I'm probably not telling any of you anything you haven't heard before, but the cameras are saturated sustained enforcement, right? What we do see is we start to see a tapering off of people's driving habits, and we actually correct it. And so when we do correct it, that's when we move to the other 400 to 500 locations in the county, and that's the kind of the circle that we put our camera systems. And knowing we will probably bring that camera back, but when we correct the habit or the driving speed, we will remove it.
As an at-large council member and as chair of this committee, people write me about requesting locations all over the place. I think every district council member here has seen correspondence from my office about someone wanting to make their road safer. And you've alluded to the fact that not every request is granted. Can you, for this public conversation, can you share what those parameters or limitations might be so that people understand what the metrics are?
Although it's a high standard, it's 85%. So when we go out, we look at 85% of the vehicles that are passing that given location have to be doing 12 miles an hour above the speed limit. That's just a baseline, because then we have to take into consideration the other environmental factors. Is it near a school? Is it near a church, a community center? Is there a lot of foot traffic? It gets us in the ballpark, right? But then we have a discussion between myself with Captain Jensen and Assistant Chief McBain as to what other issues are at play that would require us to put automated enforcement there. A portable camera system is easy to place. A fixed pole system, it's costly and time consuming. Red light systems are the same. So we just need to make sure that, yes, we do hear the community's concerns, but again, it depends on the size of the issue. It's a valuable resource. If I'm getting, if it's 10 cars that go by and 85% is 8 of those cars, it's for a month. It's just not viable for me to put a system there. But again, so that's why we have an internal dashboard where we track all these things. So if you call back again, like I said, if there's a change, a shopping center, something happens to the environment in that location, we'll go back and study it again. We use portable systems now to do traffic studies with. It's called an armadillo. Gives us more data than you would ever care to imagine. So no more
Armadillo?
Yeah, that's actually the way it looks. We can secure it to a pole, and you wouldn't even know what it's there doing. No more tubes in the road, so we don't use those anymore.
The only thing I would add to that, a lot of community complaints will be of speeding, but what we find is it's a speeder. And so sometimes utilizing our human assets or resources, we can send officers into these communities to deal with specific drivers, but also the data that we're downloading with our speed studies in the neighborhood help us to provide the data to the commanders throughout the 6 district stations of when they have a problem. For instance, Hillendale has a lot of rush hour speeding through their neighborhoods, right? So it's not necessarily necessary for an officer to sit at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but rather 6, 7, 8, and maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're more specific with the information we're providing to our district commanders for a human response to the speeding.
The 80% standard, 85% standard, that is a high threshold, and it is a scary threshold to know that nearly every car is going 12 miles per hour faster than they should be.
Yeah. And even scarier that we actually have almost 400 justified locations.
And I'll add to that too, one thing we didn't discuss is environmental as well. So if it's a speed transition zone, we're like going from 40 to 35 to 25, we usually don't place speed cameras in those zones. We get requests for those kind of transition zones. It's a little murky putting it in a transition zone. There's also questions of if you're near a curve, not putting it near a curve, making sure the camera has a sight line, so maybe there's not right of way in that area. So even if the speeds are met, there may be physically not space to put a camera there. That's something that comes across every once in a while as well. That may be a reason why a camera is not placed.
An example to utilize the resources, the trailer currently is sitting in front of Eastern Middle School. That is not an approved location. It's under study, but we want to see what the impact was. So it has a deterrent. So it's down there sitting in the median strip, and everybody knows it's there, and the people that know the law know it's there too, because
Three of us live up and down that boulevard, that corridor, so yes, we know it's
I
there.
understand where the speeding is coming from.
the community they also know the law about the proper signage, because we were quickly notified that the signage was not in place. It's not a certified location, so therefore it isn't, but it's collecting data.
Extremely helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else, Wade, or anybody else? You know, as you know, and it has been discussed several times, people love to hate speed cameras. They absolutely do. And we've all gotten complaints. Somebody will say that I got 2 2 camera tickets, and I'm never going back there again. It wasn't our fault that they were speeding. I mean, so it's just what happens. Please.
Well, I can't pass up an opportunity to ask about a couple of the hot spots in my district. So glad to have you all in front of us. And I have to say, coming into office, I would not have expected that one of the most popular requests would be for speed cameras. But they really are, and I mean, it's our community appreciates safe roadways, so we appreciate the work that you all do there, and appreciate that you all and that our state partners continue to look for more ways to expand the impact that we have within limited fiscal resources. So the one area where we've had a number of inquiries, and we've corresponded a bit, and most recently emailed over mid-October, and looking for an update about, is on Route 198. There's a couple, I know you know what I'm talking about. There's a couple spots on there. So one, there's a now I think it's fair to say, universally hated speed cushion pilot that SHA has approved and installed about an area that we have been looking at on Route 198 in the area of Santini Road. So that's between 29 and Peach Orchard. And residents are urgently requesting that that be removed and replaced with a speed camera. There definitely is a need for, some kind of enforcement capability there, and the speed cushion is having some other unintended side effects there. So, and then on the other side, between 29 and the Prince George's County line, also that eastern segment there, and there was a fatality recently. I want to say over the summer at the intersection with McNew there. So there's a DOT pedestrian path project in that area, but it's still underscored by a major speeding problem with the cars that are coming in and out from 985 and Gunpowder Road in Prince George's County. So do you happen to know offhand the status of either of those inquiries?
I live out there and I do hate the speed bump as well.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So can we get a camera? Yeah, it is doing some things. Yeah, exactly. It's effective at doing something.
But I do have an approved location at Peach Orchard.
What's that?
At Peach Orchard, where the is the church school out there?
At Peach Orchard, yeah.
Yeah. We have an approved location there.
Okay.
Not closer down because of the line of sight. Where the speed hump is. There's a curvature of the road. It kind of limits the capabilities of the camera system.
Got it.
Yeah. But
Okay.
we work with District 3 and the Office of Traffic Safety with SHA, and we're in constant contact.
Okay. Appreciate it. And so once a location is approved, what does the timeline look like to get towards installation at this point? I know you're in the midst of a transition, and so that'll be.
It's just rotating cameras through there. Portable camera system.
Unless you approve it. This new location has to be
It's
published.
approved. Yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready to go with 198.
Yeah, in terms of if it's a brand new location, we have some archaic language in state law. We've asked many times to get removed is it has to be published in a newspaper of circulation. Unfortunately, in this day and age, there's not very many that circulate in Montgomery County. So even if we have it ready to go, it still needs to kind of get packaged and put in the paper as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay, one of those. All
Now,
right.
on the other side, between 29 and Prince George's,
Yeah.
that's a little bit difficult. Well, it was difficult previously, but it's an industrial area, and I'm restricted from putting cameras in industrial zones, commercial zones.
Okay.
So
it's a good flag.
Yeah, it's
That's state or county?
that's actually in the legislation. It's in the traffic article that prohibits us from putting it.
So you're saying it's state?
Okay.
Yes.
So
state.
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's interesting. Good to something to talk to our state partners about. And then the other stretch is on University. So you mentioned that there's one in front of Eastern that many of us have seen, and then there's also there is or was an existing camera near Northwood High School. I want to say maybe that might have been one of the rotating ones, but that's a long stretch, and speeding is still very much an issue there. And then SHA had approved a traffic signal to go in at the intersection with Brunette that we started asking for right when I came into office. But SHA with the funding and everything, that's still not there yet. So are we looking at a possibility of having a camera there on an ongoing basis? Do you know?
At University in St. Paul, we're going to put a fixed pole system.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's a little farther down, but we have several locations along the corridor. We're kind of working with our state partners to see what type of improvements they're going to make, because we have the capability to do speed on green. Because of the
We
data.
gotta rename that. We got the mellow on yellow. We
mellow
should
yellow,
really.
right.
That's what I call it in my head. Yeah.
So we just have to, we're making sure that we're working together, that we're not going to do construction and put a speed camera in, and then they're going to put a red light signal that we could actually run the camera through the signal system.
Okay.
So we had actually just talked about it last week with
Great.
District 3 and Derek, and we're going to move forward with the fixed pole system. But again, once we see what the University Boulevard master plan, I think that's voted on this
The
week.
quarter plan. Yeah, we'll just. Yep.
Yeah. Then once
Great.
we get that solidified, then we can
Yeah.
determine what locations we're going to go to.
Great. And I will say that something that I think everybody that all of us has talked about very consistently with that corridor plan is that we all heard loud and clear from residents that they want action on pedestrian safety and on traffic issues. And of course, we know that the most efficient way to take care of those is through infrastructure changes. So I appreciate my colleagues for all the work and discussion on that. I've also had questions about the Safe Speed Program corridors, places where there's signage that indicate those. Because we've got a few stretches like on Ten Brook Drive between Forest Glen and Dennis, and then on Forest Glen between Brunette and Sligo Creek, where there is signage that says that it's a Safe Street Program corridor, and they would love to see cameras that reflect that. What's the connection there, or how does that work?
So it's the corridor concept, and the concept was developed quite a few years ago by our predecessors. And it's the concept is that we put the cameras wherever. So instead of a fixed location where a portable camera can be here or here, and everybody knows where it is, and Google and Waze like to tell you where they all are, it doesn't give you sustained enforcement. It doesn't sustain driver behavior. So in a corridor, we can put the camera anywhere we want. It's essentially just like a police officer. With technology and the advancements that Vitronic brings, is that we get the lat long of where the location is, and it references to the nearest cross street, so we can issue a citation based on wherever we decide to put that camera. In Europe, they actually banned Waze and Google from tagging speed camera locations. Here,
interesting.
Here it's being litigated. I kind of think we should file an injunction just saying we'll wait until we see how it works out, but until that time you have to take our cameras off your sites.
That's really interesting.
That's up to the attorneys. But again, that's why they're so effective overseas, is because they don't allow technologies like that to actually tag cameras, because they want the sustained enforcement and not just people to slow down where they know that camera system is. So the way we can combat that now is the corridor concept.
Very interesting. Okay, that's really helpful. Sorry.
If I can interrupt, if we could ask for specific locations offline.
Yeah, absolutely.
please.
I'm done with my list.
Well,
Yes.
I didn't mean to do that. But,
Yes.
But if we could, and Councilmember Lukey, I know you want to be next.
Yes, thank you. I even got calls about the speed humps on 198, and so I happened to be driving over there, and what I have observed in both directions on several days over this weekend going that way was that people were treating them as though something had fallen off a truck and was in the middle of the road, as opposed to a speed bump. And then people were trying to drive between them, but at oncoming vehicles. And I'm going, oh yeah, no, this is not the desired effect. This is not what we meant by this. But you know, the sort of pillow, I call them pillow top speed bumps, where it goes edge to edge, where there is no middle for somebody to try and squeeze their SUV that doesn't fit through it. Those seem to be very effective, because you can go over them at the posted speed limit, but if you exceed it, it's going to be unfun for you, right? So why were those plastic things put there? Does anybody know?
That was part of SHA's kind of their larger pedestrian safety action plan and vulnerable road user corridor. So they have tested the speed cushions in a couple different districts, and this is the first time they've done it in this area. So usually with the speed cushions, a lot of times the speed humps are concerned about emergency vehicle access. So by having the kind of cutouts, A, if there's drainage issues, but also B, if they have a larger axle base, they can kind of actually move around and get around the speed cushions. But I don't. DOT wants to talk about that kind of device at all.
Look at him shake his head no. He's like, don't let that woman ask me questions. No. Okay, knowing that I'm watching them cause a different safety concern for the majority of vehicles that would cross through there, I'm not really concerned about fire and rescue getting through. And I've seen them navigate, the rural rustic road I live off of that does have speed humps quite effectively, because it only slows them down by like a couple seconds, they said, and they'd rather see those than to be cutting people out of vehicles that have just crashed into the trees. But what I'm seeing on 198 is really not safe. And just goes to show how much human behavior influences so many things in so many ways. With respect to the response you gave about the commercial zones, because obviously, my office too, lots of questions, and I'm very grateful for the state legislation that Delegate Solomon sponsored. But up in Shady Grove Road, is that under evaluation? Because that is a fairly industrial area, and are you restricted for the same reasons that the stretch of 198 between 29 and McNew might be?
Yeah, so there's, with the new authority under the high energy network, a lot of chunks of state Shady Grove Road are part of our high energy network. That will override those requirements.
Okay.
So if there's a school zone, we can put it in, as long as it's above 20 miles an hour posted. It can be in a residential zone if it's between 25 and 35 miles an
35,
hour.
right.
But now with the high energy network law, and that was why we really worked with them to get it to just be all of the corridors, as it says, forget the industrial stuff, the commercial, residential, speed limits. If there's a speed problem, we should be able to study it and figure out a solution for those roadways while the longer term projects are being built. So going forward, once this new legislation comes online, those areas could be studied and potentially have speed cameras.
Okay. And, you know, you mentioned the 12 mile per hour, you must be exceeding 85% of the drivers. So is that like sort of the threshold, go, no go for further evaluation for a speed camera?
But now we have to take other.
Back from-
We have to take other factors into consideration, like is it by a school? Is it communities that are nearby? So the 85% it starts the conversation. If we're within 80, we still
Ish.
have we
Okay.
still have the conversation. We have
So
to
if there's other things like the church, the school zone, the
Yep.
campground, whatever,
Yeah.
that would allow you to still consider it, even if it didn't meet quite the 85% threshold.
Correct.
But absent those things, absent other mitigating factors like that draw high volume of pedestrians or egress for vehicles coming in and out of parking lots, you'd still have to get at or near the 85%.
Right.
Okay.
Because I said we have almost, I believe we're almost at 400 locations now,
Right.
and it keeps expanding.
Okay.
So
And to add like why we're looking at the operating speeds, some of those questions like, well, don't you just put it there because it feels like there's a need? State law does require you cannot issue a violation until that vehicle. Initially, when it was introduced in Montgomery County, I think it was 9 or 10 miles an hour. Then, when they reformed it,
Right.
they upped it to 12 miles an hour. So even if there's a speeding problem, but if it's at 5, 6, 7 miles over,
Right.
the cameras won't trigger. So it won't actually be
Right.
a tool that can resolve the issues in that area because of the state law limitations.
And totally respecting the state law, local what we can or cannot do issue. When do you think? Well, I guess I should say, would it be reasonable to expect that by July we would have a good 6 months worth of data to show the sort of, for those graduated fines that are now in play, what we're getting from our automated enforcement? Because we've all had to deal with these issues where the speeds are a lot more than 12 miles an hour. And that was no different than the work zone safety cameras that got put in place and the repeat offenders and that kind of thing for that. Which, if you can be on I-95 in a work zone and watch that thing just going off left and right, and people are not paying attention. So I would be interested in coming back in July and having another discussion about what is being seen out on the roads with our automated traffic enforcement under the new graduated fine schedule.
not only that, but the high incident network, because that's a whole new area of roadways that we can, and we already have the data. That's why we're ready to go as soon as we get the regulation passed and we can get the proper signage in place.
Right.
But that's going to be an excellent study to see how we can change the driver behavior using the corridor concept on the high incident network.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see.
Because you'll be able to see a diminish of incidents in theory. But in theory, you should already be seeing some of that, knowing that the law, that the law was passed, right? And that these fines are going up, and that the quantity over the speed limit you're going is going to matter significantly. So it should overall, at least in some measure, have reduced at least down to that first tier a little bit better. So at least that's what I would expect to see 6 months in.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink. Please keep in mind, we have another topic for this today as well.
Okay, keeping it short. Just going to flag the that October 16th email. I've got residents now texting me about the conversation we just had. So, but all those questions will be answered, I think, if we can get a good response to that email. Wanted to check in about the stop sign legislation. I know that Tacoma Park had it, and now there's a couple of the other municipalities that are looking at it. Is that something that we are pursuing getting brought by the county delegations? You know, I would assume that you would be supportive of that.
We supported it with amendment last year. And that was just to add community centers, rec centers, and swim centers, after-school programs, because we are data-driven, and we don't want this to make it look like a money grab. So if there's no data to support putting in a red light camera, or a stop sign camera outside of a school because there's been no incidents, then it becomes the money grab. So that's what we're cautious of. And currently, working with Wade and Michael's office, is we can't come across any locations that provide enough data to support that type of enforcement. So if it was expanded outside of school zones, absolutely. I used to run the police athletic league at Good Hope. I'll put one right there. That's a great location that I can't put a stop sign camera in. It's at Good Hope Road and Tweed. So if we could get that expanding, then yeah,
Great.
It would be great for us to implement. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to give a big thank you to they're not here, of course, but the 3D and 4D teams for their responsiveness when my office, and I'm sure others, raises traffic-related issues. They've been all over it, especially Officer Craig Cupiolo is everywhere doing all the things. I just wanted to give him a special shout out as well. He's really been excellent. So big thanks to them as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else, Wade?
I was going to add, so the local legislation as it's introduced right now, it does not include countywide expansion for stop sign. It only applies and adds it to the cities of Gaithersburg and Rockville. So they would be in charge of operating those systems. It would still exclude the rest of it. So Montgomery County Police would not be able to use that as it's been introduced.
Okay. Probably something should be changed. Anything else? No, we're good? Everything good? With that, we're going to turn it over to Councilmember Glass, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're gonna pivot to the other aspects of the review. The first part was the automated traffic enforcement, and I learned a lot. So I appreciate you sharing. I will certainly be flagging that part of the conversation for folks who write us all the time asking for cameras and sharing with them the insight and the data-driven approach. Very important to note that data-driven approach in which those cameras are deployed and implemented. Now, flipping to the other aspects of road safety. Within the Safe Streets Act, there were a number of other elements. One that has been a hot topic among residents throughout Montgomery County are the no turn on red signs. Yes, I've gotten a lot of correspondence about that as well. And so perhaps we start there. Recognizing that the other aspects of the law are the no turn on reds, the leading pedestrian intervals, and also the automated reviews when there are incidents in and around school zones. So those are the three different components, but let's kick it off with the no turn on red because as my inbox and my social media informs me, there are a number of residents who do not feel that their particular community or a particular intersection is the right one for a no turn on red sign. I will share that when I drafted the legislation, we recognized through a data-driven approach that 2/3 of individuals who are hit in crosswalks. Thus, we wanted to target the crosswalks, but in the legislative process, was specifically asked by MCDOT not to specify those intersections or those roads, but leave them up to the general designated areas and leave it up to the department to determine where those signs would be deployed. So with that, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the deployment, the installation, and quite frankly, the feedback that you all are receiving, because I assume every council member might have some comments about that as well.
All right, Mr. Kenny, are we able to?
Yes, we apologize. We are working to get MCPS to join us virtually.
Okay.
We have a presentation as well. So I think we can, Mr. Holland, if you'd like to start the presentation, I can get the slides up shortly.
Okay.
Just once I make sure we're all good.
Just verbally go through it?
Yeah, you can start going through it virtually. I'll get the slides up in a moment.
Yeah, so if you're following along in the packet, this is slide number 19. This is about the installation and where it says these have to be installed. And again, this is not a consider, this is a must in this law. So a lot of times when we get questions about it, we go and say, well, this is what was prescribed by law, that these have to be here. As covered in Bill 1129, also known as the Safe Streets Act of 2023, there's right turn on red prohibitions were signed. Those are in designated downtown areas and town center areas defined in county code as those are defined in the master planned areas. Leading pedestrian intervals are in downtown and town center areas, so those overlap. And then one extra area for leading pedestrian interval, which I'll define here, is giving pedestrians a 3 to 7 second head start prior to vehicle traffic entering the intersection. And those are within 1,300 feet of access point to a school, park, rail station, library, bus rapid transit station, or community center frontage. And when we looked at it from the perspective of what's required by federal policies, there was, the law itself did not necessarily run afoul of federal policies, but it does require that if we do have a no turn on red prohibition, it must be signed. So on slide 20, this gives you an idea of, and this is also a question we get a lot about the Safe Streets Act, no turns on red. They say, well, why is this intersection, but the adjacent intersection not also including a no turn on red prohibition? And that usually means that that road, for example, in downtown Bethesda, along Wisconsin Avenue and Old Georgetown Road that are controlled by the State Highway Administration, which are not covered by this law. We do work with our state highway partners if there are areas we could think that would benefit from these treatments, but they are not covered by this law. So I'll turn to slide 21 now. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mr. King. So these are the installations to date. There were 161 county-owned intersections that met the criteria for right turn on red within a downtown or town center area. 148 of those intersections have no turn on red installed, and there were 11 intersections that were exempt, either due to no vehicles turn conflicts, so they basically all pedestrian phase, or it's a pedestrian-only signal, so only pedestrians are entering during the time there's a red light for vehicles. And there were 2 intersections pending installation. For leading pedestrian intervals, there were 231 county-owned intersections that met the criteria, and 208 have been installed to date with 5 pending. So now, looking into, as you all mentioned, we are now past the installation stage and now into the monitoring phase, and looking at whether or not any of these installations meet the county law requirement of significantly impaired public safety, because I think a lot of the questions we get is about traffic, but by county law, we can't consider that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Paler.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Michael Paylor, and I'm the Chief of Traffic Engineering and Operations. It's good to see you all. On this slide, we mentioned that we have 25, on this slide, we mentioned that we have 25 locations that we were currently looking at to review them to determine if there were modifications that were going to be made. One of the locations, I believe that was Shady Grove in Oakmont, was modified several weeks ago. That location had a signal timing issue that was complicating traffic movement, so it wasn't because of the no turn on red installation. It was something else. So we're able to make that modification and take that intersection out of the queue. And I'll say just in general, as we look at these 24 locations and then moving forward and looking at other locations as we go through this monitoring process, it's comforting to know, as your county traffic engineer, that perhaps many of these locations where issues exist can be addressed through timing changes. As I mentioned, these 24 remaining locations are set to be provided to me by next week to tell me what the advancement of improvement needs to be, whether there's a safety issue, whether it's just operational, and whether those operational challenges can be addressed by making simple traffic signal modifications. So we're hoping the latter as opposed to any of the two previous ones. As we have in the slide as well, we talk about the scenarios in accordance with the Safe Streets Act, those scenarios that would impair or could impair public safety, which is a threshold for a strong consideration of removing the no turn on red. And that is a scenario where increased traffic and conflicts would exist because of anything. Secondarily, we talk about the intersection queues that extend back to nearby intersections that create occlusions or obstructions for vehicles trying to navigate those secondary intersections. And then also, which is one that might seem more nebulous, the queuing for right turn vehicles, and that queuing increasing the potential for rear end crashes. And what we would anticipate is that for no turn on red installation, queuing at that intersection, let's say traffic queues back into a curve or in some other occluded area, and then an approaching motorist may not have advance notice that there's a stopped vehicle in his pathway, and so all of a sudden there are red lights in the vehicle, and so we would look at that and say, wow, there may need to be some changes. And again, the hope is that we can address that through a signal timing change, but in the event that we're unable to do so, we would look at a removal if it's going to create a safety hazard. So.
If you're stopping there, I appreciate that, and I am looking at the legislation, and lines 96 and 97, or 94 through 97, do give the director the discretion to determine if installation of no turn on red would lead to significantly impair public safety. And Mr. Paylor, that's what you were referring to. Public safety can be interpreted a number of different ways. The intent of the law was the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, but as you rightly noted, there are certain communities and certain areas in our county where vehicular safety should be a front of mind as well. And so as I have shared privately, I will share publicly that I do think that the director should use some of the impact, some of the input that we all have received in parts of the county, particularly up county. Looking at my two colleagues there, who I know have received a lot of correspondence as well. Well-intentioned policies that might not have been implemented necessarily as hoped. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Paylor. You've been very patient and kind in all of our correspondence from my office on this. So a couple things. One, from that perspective of, be careful what you wish for. We fully understand that we passed the law and you are implementing the law. So, I understand that that it's on us in terms of what we currently have. But I do think that we have these reviews of the intersections, and so what is the timeline for those reviews?
So thank you, Councilmember Balcom. The initial 24. Again, I'll mention that those reviews should be completed sometime next week.
Okay.
The overall network is a little bit more challenging. So I'll spin back to something that Chair Glass mentioned, and he talked specifically about pedestrian and bicycle safety being one of the litmus items that we would look at to say, hey, we don't want to impact safety. And what I didn't mention, what I failed to mention in my initial monologue, is that when we see areas where congestion exists, and also if we notice that vehicles are bypassing the congestion and cutting through areas where we know bicycles and pedestrians are going to be moving, those are other safety considerations that we would look at to say that location probably needs to have the NTOR removed. So that hopefully will satisfy you at least in a little bit. I'll go back to your question, Councilmember Balcom. So for the sum total of these, we're basically looking at these from a complaint-driven perspective, and also within about 6 months to a year, starting to look at the crash data at these locations. if the intent of the program is to eliminate or reduce pedestrian and bicycle crashes due to right-turning vehicles, then we want to take a look at this in a year's time and say, okay, what does the data suggest is happening? Is there a reduction? Now, keep in mind that a one-year review is typically premature. We have to look at a larger body of data. So typically when you're doing traffic engineering or traffic data investigations, there's a 3-year time frame. That's a long time to really come to a conclusion as to whether or not your program is working right. So at least looking at it from a 6-month to a year perspective and trying to get some semblance of data to tell us where the program is going, or what kind of impact these changes are being made is something that we'll look at. But we have to give it some time. We have to give traffic time to normalize and become accustomed to the new roadway orientation, to say, okay, now that everybody has it, what are we looking at as far as the outcomes?
Okay. Yeah, so a couple of the things that, in talking to the community, we hear it a lot, right? So one is in the intersections where it is warranted because there are a lot of pedestrians, then you've got the people who are turning right on red queuing, and so I think that the solution might be a right turn arrow. So I'm assuming that in the coming year, 2 years, you'll be looking at where a right turn arrow might have to go, because I found that as soon as we got into the no right on red, I've experienced that myself, where 1 or 2 cars can turn right because of the pedestrians, which means that that's an intersection that we want it to be, but then how do we get the traffic flow through that intersection?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Balcom. That's a really good idea, a good perspective, and certainly if you're interested in leaving the council and coming to work with the traffic engineer, love to have you on board. I think I mentioned this to you before, but yes, that's a fantastic idea and a consideration that our office is going to be looking at as we go through these evaluations.
Okay, and then the other one that you might not agree with is the time of day, right? And so we've heard that issue before. It's like this: they're sitting there at 10 o'clock at night, or 5 in the morning, and they can't turn right on red. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's another weird animal. So I'll go back to something else that's sort of related because it deals with signalized intersections, and that is the concept of placing a traffic signal on late night flash, where you take it out of full color and you put it on yellow flash because you're assuming that no one's going to travel through that intersection. And we found historically that that's problematic and doesn't work, because what happens is people get to these late night flash intersections, they drive through and they wind up striking other vehicles, and there are injury, crashes or fatalities that result. And so the decision was made to take, and we worked in partnership with the State Highway Administration, but the decision was made to take all of the state signals out of late night flash and put them in full color. And we're probably, I'd say, about 60 to 80% through doing that. The only challenge is to make sure that there is appropriate detection on the main line. And basically you need a camera or a loop or some other detection device that's going to acknowledge that Wade Holland has left his midnight bowling club and he's 2 o'clock in 2 o'clock in the morning at that traffic signal, and we need that signal to acknowledge him so that he's not waiting there for an indeterminate amount of time. Otherwise, that doesn't work. So going back to the example that you gave, can we do a time of day, which would mean signing that says no right turns from this to that? Now we've introduced an enforcement component. So you need some kind of detection, which is in the form of cristipery and either his electronic devices or a body that is going to enforce that. Otherwise, you may have some complications. Anytime when you give an out to a motorist who has a mission to get where they're going regardless, you introduce a potential safety hazard that, you have unintended consequences. So that's something that we could look at, but we probably need to take a holistic look at it to see what complications would ensue or what the unintended consequences would be on that.
Okay, and then the other point about the area, the town center and downtown zones, it's a zoning issue. This is an issue particularly in the Germantown Town Center zone. It's a very large area, and based on the 15-year-old master plan that's currently being revised. So it'll be interesting with the new master plan whether the Father Hurley Boulevard is still considered town center. So I would assume that if a master plan changes the designation of an area, would that mean that this law wouldn't apply to that area if the zoning changes?
That is correct, Councilmember Malcolm. And we would make the requisite modifications.
Okay, great. So we don't, stay tuned. We're in the middle of it right now, but I think that's an issue. I think that those are my primary points. But thank you. I know that we're all working on it together, and for anybody listening, we are working on it. So thank you.
Appreciate that, Councilmember Malcolm. I've been to Black Rock 2 or 3 times, and I've had people ask me about some of the same areas and the same zoning that you referenced. So appreciate you articulating that this afternoon. Councilmember Lutke.
Thank you. So I know that you have these 25 that are under evaluation right now, and my practice has been, because much like my colleague up county, we do get lots of questions about these, particularly in places where not all drivers passing through are as attuned to pedestrian usage or non-usage, and so there's a sort of single purpose there, and they may be feeling frustrated. But these sites were all very deliberately chosen for where the signs have gone, based on the way the law is written, correct?
Yeah. Well, the important thing to note is that the law is very prescriptive. It's not an opt-in, it's an opt-out. You can only opt out of those locations if it has a high threshold of impaired public safety. So even if Michael Paler and his team knew that, hey, this is going to back up traffic, well, county law says I can't take that into effect anymore. So that's where I think some of the pain points come from, is if, from a traffic operations perspective, it wouldn't make sense, but because of the different thresholds set by law, now it has to go in.
So they went in to the places that were required under the law, but as you noted, you need at least 6 to 12 months to really sort of assess what might be working or where there might be hiccups, to your point about if right turn traffic is backing up a certain amount and it's blocking secondary intersections and causing other, consequences that aren't the ones we wanted, then that's time then if we need to adjust the bill. Is that what you're saying? Would it require that, or may it require that if based on a year worth of evaluation, you see that it doesn't meet necessarily define what would meet public safety thresholds?
So again, I think that, Councilmember Lukey, is the issue. When we look at it from a public safety threshold, and we mentioned a couple of scenarios where we'd say these are public safety issues. If the queuing or the congestion at those locations where NTRs have been installed results in those that I've mentioned or some that are unmentioned, then we would certainly explore the removal. Beyond that, there probably would need to be a broader conversation about changes that we might consider to the law, or that the council, the panel might consider to the law, to address some of the unintended consequences of having those specific thresholds for installation.
Right, but I mean, we would need, look, I want to be clear, I like the no turn on red thing, right? I co-sponsored the bill. But sometimes you see, as things go in, to my point about those speed bumps on 198 that are not working very well, that something's not quite right. And I'd love, to be able to have you say, hey, here's what we figured out. And maybe there's a common thread. And again, we need time to sort that out. But having a threshold like you do, and I think being able to articulate, giving us the tool to be able to say, unless it's creating a public safety hazard, it stays. And also to Councilmember Balcom's point about the right turn arrow or other signaling things, or giving Chris more tools that might allow for enforcement during certain hours, because that is where those do exist. I do think generally they're effective, but you're also right, because the impatient soul just decides they're going to do whatever they feel like doing. And that's not okay. And that hurts people. Now we're back to square one.
Agreed. So it sounds to me as if you're asking for a summary in our review that lays out prescriptions or advancements. These create safety issues.
Yeah.
These we can make modifications,
Yes.
i.e. add red turning arrows. These we recommend you consider modifications to the structure of the law so that we can address the operational dearth that's created by these. So we
Right.
can certainly include that in our report for the benefit of the group.
I think that's hugely helpful. It's hugely helpful for us in being able to speak to our constituents about it. Like, here's what's going on from an engineering perspective and a safety perspective, and here's what could be done as an alternative to the point about the, certain hours, no turn, and adding an automated enforcement component. Right? That is what we would call a compromise. Right? But having that broken out in that concrete way for the specific areas where it's being evaluated would be invaluable to us. We can take it out of engineering speak and put it in regular people speak, but we need to be able to have those tools in order to effectively address the concerns that we get from constituents or out in the community at our town halls. And I think when you have an articulated basis for the why, and you also have an articulated basis for the it is or isn't working, and we've already looked at it, that gets us to where we need to be for the naysayers and for the champions, right? It's important across the spectrum. So thank you.
Yeah, we agree. Thank you.
Chair Katz.
Thank you very much. I think it should be noted that right turn on red really only started in 1978 in Maryland. I mean, we take it for granted now that that's what we had, but when I first started driving, you didn't have right turn on red. Didn't have the amount of traffic that we have now either, but that's the other thing. To the whole idea that we need to be more flexible when we see something isn't working, that to me is a concern, because if you see that traffic is backing up and whatever, then I think we need to have something that says that when our professionals know for sure this isn't working, we don't have to wait months in order to change it, or years to change it. And I think that's part of what people are getting frustrated about. I mean, some of them, I said before about red light cameras, people love to hate them. They really love to hate these. I mean, I didn't have one yesterday and traffic backed up for 3 miles. Well, that becomes an issue. So I do think when we're looking at this, we need to figure out how we can be more flexible, how we can figure out how to get things solved when we realize that our professionals realize things aren't working. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the through, Mr. Paler, I think the through line here is, while we all agreed and supported and wrote the legislation, sometimes the implementation needs fine tuning, particularly, and you're really just hearing in certain parts of the county. And to Councilmember Balcom's point, there is a zoning rewrite underway, which might affect some of those, but I also appreciate the ideas of the turn on red arrows and some other accommodations, which we would need to fund in the budget in order to make that a reality. So that is back on us, understood. But appreciate this conversation and recognizing the time, and our committee has been here for a little while. I want to get to the additional aspect or two of the legislation of the law for review, and that is the review of the school zones, making sure that our children are safely able to get to school and return home from school. I've been told that MCPS is online.
Yes.
So they are online. Wonderful. I don't know if they want to lead the conversation or the department wants to lead the discussion about the reviews that have already been done.
Yeah, we can start, because we can
Great.
talk about kind of the referral process and allow our agency partners kind of talk about what they've done with this. So We've gone in reverse order now, so we're now to slide number 3 for our safe school trip crash reviews. Shouldn't be that hard to say. Just a reminder of what's in the Safe Streets Act of 2023 for this part of the law is that as a crash is found to meet certain criteria, which means it is a person going to or from a school building, either in a school zone, a designated school zone, and in a walk shed, school designated walk shed for certain criteria about school instructional days between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. The police review all those crashes as they come in and make the referral to what we call the agency having jurisdiction, which is just a fancy bureaucrat way of saying who actually maintains and controls that road. Once that's referred in terms of the law, we do refer to outside agencies, but the law doesn't cover what they need to do. For the MCDOT, County Department of Transportation, they review any deficiencies in engineering, traffic control, and operations, and any appropriate corrective actions and crash reduction measures, previous collisions in the facility, and any changes to safety-related outreach and education programs if warranted. And as Michael will talk about in his presentation, there's also kind of going beyond just that crash that they saw right there and what happened, but also have been making recommendations and interventions that aren't even related to the crash, but just while they're out there, find things that they need to fix or want to change and maintain. Just a quick overview of our Safe Routes to School crash process and a process diagram. Very simply, myself and police meet once a month to review the crashes from the prior months or any other later receiving crashes that came in that meet the minimum criteria for the Safe Streets Act, and then we actually review the entire report to see if it needs to be referred under the law. The police then redact what we call PII, so personally identifiable information from the reports, and then refer those reports to those agencies. And for County DOT, that does start the 6-month clock once the referral is made to them to get the report posted on the website. So what does it look like cross-agency collaboration? So under the Safe Streets Act, we have entered a memorandum of understanding, or MOU, between the county government and the public schools that outlines what each department and agency needs to do under the act. So obviously the police are still investigating the crashes, and then once that crash is approved, they are the ones who are going to refer that, as long as myself looking up through the crashes, for referral. And then we mentioned for DOT on the previous slide what they do for their reviews. And for public schools, when we refer a crash to public schools, those to date have all been on, usually in a parking facility, either a bus loop or a parking lot. And public schools also helps us to flag any reports that they see that may be relevant in terms of a school bus stop or anywhere near a school. So in terms of referrals to date, so this slide covers all the referrals we've made from crash dates from the beginning of calendar year 2024 through the end of October 31st, 2025. We have 1,200 non-motorist crashes. So when we say the word non-motorist, that means anyone not in a vehicle, so that's pedestrians, bikers, scooters. You got out of your car, you're now a pedestrian for this part of the slides. We had 457 crashes that met the minimum review criteria. So we have basically a script that goes through and checks for that. And out of those 457, 100 were related to a school trip and referred to that agency. So by agency referrals, we've made 47 of those 100 have been to MCDOT, which isn't surprising. A lot of our school roads tend to be in neighborhoods that are all surrounded by roads that are owned and maintained by the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Second most to SHA, which again isn't a surprise because SHA operates our most high volume roads in the county. 15 to MCPS, which are in school parking lots. 7 to municipal partners, so that's Gaithersburg, Rockville, and Tacoma Park. 2 to Montgomery College. We actually weren't sure if Montgomery College was covered, but because it got flagged, they're technically going to a school building. We did send it to our partners in Montgomery College as well. And then 1 has been sent to Montgomery Parks during that time. And just give you a zoomed in look at that map because it gets a little busy when you have 2 years worth of data on there. These are the ones that have been referred since this school year, 25-26 school year. 9 to MCDOT, 5 to schools, and then 5 to SHA. In terms of what we've learned from these crashes, this is slide 10, shows non-motorists struck by age. So the most common age group is our high school age group. This is not uncommon we see from our overall distribution of crashes, whether it's going to school or not going to school for our 18 and under crowd. So when you think about our high schoolers, they have longer walks. So the school walk shed for a school can be up to 2 miles long. These schools can be sited along major highways. They have earlier bell times. They're very much less likely to walk with adults or other chaperone as they compare to elementary and middle school students. And then, of course, when you get to be a teenager, you have that elevated risk tolerance, aka the invincible mindset, starts to set in at that age. Flipping from let's look at the non-motorists who were struck by injury. So 93% of those have been referred had either no or minor injuries. For comparison, it's a little bit higher than we see for no and minor injuries for the overall county. Again, these tend to be crashes on lower speed, lower volume roads, so you see a little bit higher rates of, thankfully, lower injuries. Switching over to the striking drivers by age, we have 11 that were 20 or under, so these are most likely to be in the age group of the parents or parent-aged drivers. They're involved in striking those. The median age is 43. There's 13 not captured. That can either be the driver was not on the scene, there's a hit and run, or the report was reported to police a day or two later and there wasn't vehicle information available. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Paylor to talk about the scope of the crash review on county roads.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. So basically, when we take a look at the crashes that occur, we do a standard data review. We take a look at crashes that may have occurred at that location over the last 5 years. We look at what patterns might be similar in those crashes. We also look at contributing factors. Was it weather? Is it visibility, pavement markings, devices, things like that? And then we also review the current student transportation. What's going on? Is it in a walk shed, or is this an area where students are bused at that location? So in our field review, we're taking a look at the signs and markings. We look at any immediate maintenance needs for, if the signs are knocked down, the markings are faded. And then we also have a review of previous studies that were done. Is there a past walkability study in those areas? What recommendations are in there? Any master plan recommendations, we take a look at those. And then out of that, we develop recommendations short-term related to maintenance and signing, and then extending those to medium or long-term items. Are we talking about markings? Are we talking about signalization or beaconization at those locations? Can we move this into a future SRTS project, or is this something that's going to be in a larger CIP span project? So that's typically how we take a look at things. I think the next slide, we have an example report, Bushy Drive north of Minden, and here are the crash details on this. And out of this report, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we determined that there were no specific recommendations, i.e. we determined that there were no deficiencies to the infrastructure, which is in the predominant, it's a predominant, let me have my mouth together. Predominantly, we find that there are no infrastructure deficiencies when we look at these locations where crashes have occurred. However, as Mr. Holland mentioned, we also, after we make that determination, and perhaps maybe this is a time for me to step back and give you a little bit more perspective here. When we perform a crash investigation at these locations, we look for, when we say deficiencies on the infrastructure, we're saying, is there something related to the infrastructure that is directly, or that could be considered directly or indirectly causal or contributing to the crash? And if the answer is no, we also take a look at any type of beneficial improvements. Okay, we didn't find that there's a deficiency. The signs were there, they're visible. The markings are there, they're visible. There are no occlusions from trees or things like that. So then we say, what can we do at these locations to enhance safety? And that's where we come up with these interventions. And we say, okay, do we need to refresh the crosswalks, or do we need to actually add crosswalks? Can we shorten the crossing by installing those white flex posts so that the sidewalk or the curb or bump out, so that the curbs move into the roadway and the crossing distance is shorter, and thus the pedestrian exposure when crossing is shorter? Traffic signalization, as I mentioned earlier, can we put a pedestrian hybrid beacon or some other beacon, things like that? So those are the interventions from the review that we have determined might be beneficial for safety or operations, but are not directly or indirectly causal to the particular crash that occurred at those locations. And like I said, I mentioned Bushy Drive at Elby. In this case, we put in curb bump outs, extended the curb so we can slow vehicles as they turned on those roadways. And also as you compress the roadway, folks slow down. And then we also upgraded the crosswalks to the latest standards so that those locations would be more highly visible. And you can see some other examples on that slide as well. But I wanted to highlight Bushy Drive since we called that out in particular in the previous slide. Yeah. So this was, thank you. So this was kind of the textual version of that previous graphic where we talked about the specific improvements at those locations. You know, Denison Julep, we repaired the damaged LED. Astoria and Woodson, we coordinated with the State Highway Administration to get a chain link fence around a stormwater management repaired because pedestrians were going through the opening in the chain link fence and then crossing mid-block. So once you close the fence off, they don't have the opportunity to do that, and you enhance the safety at those locations or at that location. Also installing the no parking signs. Watkins and Stedwick, we had some signal phasing modifications that we made. And then on Rock Spring, west of Old Georgetown, we have a pedestrian hybrid beacon that's scheduled for installation at an existing crosswalk. So those are the type of intervention projects that after we look and say, these things probably wouldn't have affected positively or negatively the crash, but we think that there are some safety or operational enhancements that could benefit the community if we installed them. And so that's what we did at these locations and others that are on table. So
Great.
Yeah, and that concludes the county portion of it. So I don't know if you want to take questions now or you want to go to the schools online.
I appreciate very, very sobering information that you have shared, and the breakdown of the 100 cases, indicative of this discussion. 47 have go to MCDOT for jurisdiction, 26 to SHA, 15 to MCPS, 7 to municipalities, 2 to Montgomery College. 2 because of they're on private property, and 1 Montgomery Parks. And Mr. Kenny, you said MCPS is actually online?
They are. They're on Zoom now.
I don't know who from MCPS is online, but if you want to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone, members of the County Council, distinguished council members, partners, and stakeholders. My name is Kina Ilyasi. I'm the Bus Operations Coordinator with Montgomery County Public Schools.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of the County Council. My name is Tony Tusi. I am the Director of Infrastructure Design for Montgomery County Public Schools and Transportation.
Thank you both for being here this afternoon. I don't know if you have any formal presentation or if you're just on standby in case anybody has any questions for you.
No, we were just on standby, but we will add that our internal office within Montgomery County Public Schools Transportation, along with collaboration from our facilities and security offices, review all of the referrals that are made to us from the Montgomery County Police Department for all the crashes that have occurred. And our job at this time really is just looking at, of course, all the crashes that are referred and just doing data tracking to identify any trends or patterns that we may see in certain areas. And as Mr. Paler and Mr. Holland had alluded to earlier, they certainly are getting all of these reports from the Montgomery County Police Department. We're just trying to do our side of the the MOU to just review these cases internally as well. And as he noted earlier in the presentation, most of these crashes that have occurred on school grounds are really attributed to just drivers being distracted or inattentive. And then there's also been cases with pedestrians not following marked crosswalks or walking through school grounds. All of these, in our determination, have been deemed preventable. If our drivers and our students are abiding by laws in the parking lots, then we would certainly feel that we wouldn't be experiencing these crashes on the property. That's all we really do have to add right now, though.
Okay, thank you very much for zooming in, and if you want to remain on standby in case anybody has any additional questions for you, I appreciate you taking the time to participate in this conversation. A lot of the data, I think, speak for itself, but I do want to ask an overarching question. As you've done these reviews, what is the through line that you've found, if there is one? Is there, depending on the geography or topography of an area, is it sometimes the road design, the actual school design, driver behavior, student behavior?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Glass. The predominant conclusion is that I'll say it's mode behavior. So it could be the motorist, it could be the pedestrian.
Mode behavior.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for these data and the presentation. So we have 100 crashes, as the chair said, and 47 of them were reviewed by DOT, correct? And then you had the interventions. And thank you for the examples. I think they're great. Is it possible in the future to get some type of chart to know when you've reviewed a crash and then the intervention? Because I imagine and maybe that exists and I didn't see it in the packet and I apologize. Just looking at this map in my district, I imagine that there would be questions from folks about like, okay, so what took place after that review? And if there was some way of doing a chart that could be updated would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Stewart. That is something that we certainly can prepare.
Yeah, I think that would be, and that would help us to track all of them, because I think the examples you pulled out were really excellent. So thank you for that. And then, and if I'm going out of order, the chair will tell me, but I think this is a question for maybe Mr. Holland and MCPS on the walkability studies on this. And I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with this. And when we had a joint committee hearing a while ago talking about this, one of the things that we stressed, many of us on these committees, was the need to really interact and engage with residents about how they were walking to and from school. And I see on the slide it says coordination with school staff and crossing guards, which is great. Nowhere on the slide, and maybe it's just an omission, do I see anything about engaging the community. And so if we could just talk for a moment about the walkability studies and how they're being done and how members of the public are being engaged, that would be great.
Yeah, so on the slide you referenced, that is only particular to the Safe Routes School Infrastructure Reviews. That's
Okay.
not for the larger, because walkability studies are kind of its own thing. So in terms of parent engagement, there's kind of different levels throughout. So there could be an online survey. DOT also does postcards to the neighborhoods, letting them know. We also have social media posts to get feedback through those. Some are more successful than others in terms of feedback. It just depends on how people receive it and if they're interested at the time. And I think it's something we're always looking to do more of as well.
Yeah, and I would just say that, engaging our offices to help push out some of that. I know we do get some of that information, but, I know Mr. Paler is going to be in a neighborhood tonight with me, sometimes when you're on the ground with the families and you see, and especially middle schoolers are really good about finding the shortest distance from their home to a school, and it doesn't always match the map or how we would like them to walk. And so I'm just going to push again for us to really engage, and I would say not just parents on social media and everything, but I'd really like us to see us engage the students and talk. I mean, we can talk to middle schoolers and high schoolers about how they're walking to and from school, because that's the behavior that we want to make sure they're safe doing that. And so I'll just push for that a little bit more, and happy to help in that as well. Thank you.
I appreciate that suggestion, because ultimately, the data-driven approach also needs to be complemented with a real approach from the users of our roads and sidewalks, and those are our kids. I'll go down the road. Yeah, Councilmember Malcolm.
So thank you. I really appreciate that comment by Councilmember Stewart. just because we have designed what the safe route to school is doesn't mean that that's what the kids are using. We certainly, Clarksburg High School, they walk down Old Baltimore Road when there's not a sidewalk in the dark, and that's the way they walk, sadly. So I do have a question. I know that this is an appendix, but one of my issues is how long it takes to do them. So how many schools do we have left in terms of to review?
So they're currently in the phase 2 walkability studies. Let me just jump to that. We're about a little over halfway done with them. And that's only the study part. Doesn't include obviously making the recommendations. Usually the NCDOT does about 15 studies, and those are usually clustered, the school clusters. And then in addition to that, there is about 5 to 10 intervention projects, and depending how much an intervention project may cost, maybe fewer or more in a given fiscal year.
So roughly how long will it take to finish?
We have,
Yeah, we're about halfway through, and that means we're probably 60 left. Yeah, so I'm thinking if we're doing 12 to 15 a year, we're talking 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that that's a budgetary issue, and I know that I've mentioned it for 3 years going. I just think that we need to think about how to increase that.
Yeah, I want to I'll say thank you for the previous cash infusion that we received for the program a couple of years ago, because that cash increase enabled us to enhance the number of studies that we're able to do by, I think, some 30 or 40%. So we're way ahead of where we were just a few years ago, okay, even though we're probably behind what all of us would like to see as a goal.
Okay. So we'll talk about that again during the budget. So, thank you. And I know that this is outside the scope of the Safe Route to School or everything that we've talked about today, but I just have to say thank you for the project at Roberto Clemente's school that DOT did. The parents were making U-turns right on that road, and very, very dangerous. And the PTA the PTA and the principal were very vocal about it, and DOT came out, and I just bopped in one day, and I didn't know the project was actually happening, and it brought tears to my eyes, because we had been, the community had been advocating for that for so long, and it was so heartwarming to see it happen. So I just want to say thank you. At least one school is much, much, much safer, and I know that the work that you do really does impact our schools. So I just wanted to say thank you for the Roberto Clemente School.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to give recognition to Ms. Nimu Badye, who is our capital projects manager, who was the tip of the spear for that project, including making a determination as to what improvements might benefit that area in the realm of safety. So I want to acknowledge her and her work and her team's work. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Councilwoman, you're in. Councilmember Ludke.
Yeah, whatever you want to study related to the schools, we will bring the kids. You just need to come. And I can tell you, we were able to get in my district around Sherwood High School for exactly the same reason, where there are bus stops that are not at a spot you would expect them. There's a 7-Eleven, and there's not good crossing spots, but everybody's crossing Route 108. And we have had incidents there, right? And so we brought the kids, we brought SHA, we all hung out. Everybody, people were walking past me because they went to middle school with my kids, and they're like, "Hey, Rose's mom," and, high five, and then walk right across the street, not at the intersection, right? But that was that was what would feel natural, but for I'm over 50 and don't want to get hit, right? But the kids are just trying to get to 7-Eleven and get back for practice or whatever, or go home. So there's no substitute for being able to be there physically on site and watch it at the times of day when it is most noticeable. We did notice, and thank you for still including Montgomery College in the data, because the way our dual enrollment program works with MCPS, they have to go to MC to get those classes. So we are having our high school students who are on the MC campus or walking around the campus to be able to attend their dual enrollment program. So it's not just our college students, they are actually MCPS students there as well.
So I just want to cycle back to the comment that you made about being on the ground and watching the pedestrian origin and destination of the desire lines. I apologize, I got my tongue tied today. Yeah, it is beneficial for us to be on the ground. Oftentimes, we are able to look at a two-dimensional image and really come to a conclusion as to where a sensible, or I shouldn't say a sensible, or where a desire line would be for a pedestrian. The pedestrian say, isn't it easier for me to cross here? And that's where many of the complications exist, not only for Montgomery County DOT, but also for the State Highway Administration, because when we are made aware of, or we discover the pedestrian desire line, then there is the opportunity for us to consider an improvement that would be sufficient enough to address or enhance the safety of a crossing there. And that is the challenge. And I know with the State Highway Administration on some of their larger roads like University Boulevard or 108, it's kind of hard for them, at least with their philosophy, to introduce a pedestrian hybrid beacon or a traffic signal mid-block. It's a mid-block crossing. Similarly, the county has to come to grips with that and make a determination as to whether or not a treatment like a pedestrian hybrid beacon or even a full signal for a pedestrian crossing is reasonable and sensible. And I certainly hope and encourage my team to look at those things when we're either made aware of those desire lines or when we discover them through a normal traffic study or through a resident or council request. So I hope that we can continue to do that and do better at that, Councilmember Lukey, but it's a great point that we all need to pay attention to.
This has been a data-heavy afternoon. I've learned a lot from the data points and the insights and the observations across the board, from the automated traffic enforcement to the number of reviews and the number of no turn on red signs and the creative solutions to continue making our communities safe for pedestrians, for bicyclists, and for drivers. And so we will continue this discussion, and we would want all of this done as quickly as we can. We do have the capital budget that's coming up and the operating budget, so you continue to advocate to the county executive for how you think this should be complemented in those budgets, and we'll take that up in due time. But very much appreciate the seriousness and the partnership that all of us come to the table to make sure that every person, especially our kids, are safe when they go to and from school. And let Chair Katz get the final word here.
There again, we thank you very much for everything you're doing. This information is very necessary, and I think for people that would actually listen to the entire meeting, and I don't know that there will have that many, but the people that would actually listen to this entire meeting will get a better understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you.
And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.